Hey guys, I'm Lexie Smith, a mom, multi-hyphenate entrepreneur, and the founder and CEO of the PR Bar Inc. coaching platform and agency. In my career, I've had the privilege of guiding countless brands, ingenious publicists, eager students, and ambitious entrepreneurs on their PR journeys. I've danced with the giants and nurtured startups, directed in-house PR departments, lent my expertise to boards, and spread knowledge across universities nationwide. Throughout all of this, I've seen our industry change and evolve while simultaneously proving that some timeless fundamentals remain unshaken. This show takes you behind the scenes of the world of media, marketing, and PR, aiming to teach you all the new tips, tricks, and how the best and brightest are achieving success over SIPs. Now it's time to grow. Welcome to the show. Kells McPhillips is a health and wellness writer whose journalism has appeared in the New York Times, Well+Good, Fortune, Runner's World, Outside, Yoga Journal, and others. Kells holds an MFA in creative writing from the New School in New York City. In 2022, her short fiction was shortlisted for the Masters Review Summer Short Story Award for New Writers, and she is the 2023 recipient of the Office Fellowship in Santa Monica. Kells, welcome to the show. Before we dive in, where is home base and what do you like to do outside of work for fun?
Thank you again so much for having me. I live in Santa Monica, California now, and I, outside of work, do a lot of reading and also a lot of movement, like running and climbing and hiking. Southern California is such a beautiful place to live for that sort of thing. So it's just when you're not outside, you sort of have outside FOMO.
Where in Santa Monica are you at? I used to live in Santa Monica.
I'm actually really close to the beach now. Like I live like a 20-minute walk away. It's really, really nice to just be able to like go and be there.
It's funny. I lived in Santa Monica for 3 years and I kind of bounced all around. The closest I was Third and Washington, then I was on the other side of the freeway across from Lincoln. And I loved the walkability of it. The one thing that I really, really disliked was parking.
Oh, yes. Yeah. It's a whole thing. It is a
Yes,
whole
it's a
thing.
thing.
We have a great spot, which is like we have a covered garage, which is really nice here too, because lately there have been like a lot of people like messing with people's cars, like stealing things and
Oh,
everything. So it's
lovely.
nice to be able to lock up your car.
Yeah.
That makes Santa Monica sound great. Usually it feels pretty safe, but at night, you here
Yeah.
you
It's LA. I mean, it's a nice part of LA, but so book-wise, I know you're an author, but what do you like to read?
I'm not an author yet.
Okay.
I've written some short stories that have gotten placed, but I'm still working on it. I'm working on a book though, so hopefully one day, we keep going work or keep working and keep, you know, keep writing. I am mostly a literary fiction reader. I just love kind of like that mix of story and language, so I kind of need both. And I just finished this really great short story collection called Heartbroke by Chelsea Beaker. And I do love short stories in the summer because I have like a little bit shorter of an attention span and I can just kind of dip in and out without feeling like, oh, I haven't finished a book all summer.
Yeah.
So it's been really nice.
What book are you working on? What's the topic?
Oh, this question.
Or is it
I
secret?
Oh no, it's not a secret,
Okay.
but it's funny because every time someone asks me, I like get so anxious, which is funny because I should just talk about the book. Um, the book I'm working on now is a climate fiction novel. Like the word that people are using now is cli-fi, but I don't know if everyone knows what that is. It's about a woman who is actually a shark reporter. She's living in this time where global warming has made it so that all the sharks are coming closer and closer to shore. So there are more shark attacks every single day. And thus, there's a need for shark reporters on these different attacks. So basically, this woman goes to an area that's loosely based off Cape Cod to pack up her grandmother's belongings. And her grandmother was this famous actress. And she starts to sort of, as she's packing up her grandmother's things, everything is just sort of coming to a head. She's writing about sharks and she's really kind of coming to grips with some of the traumas that her grandmother endured. And it's sort of like a family drama meets like a kind of raunchy shark movie, which those are some of my favorite movies. Like Jaws isn't raunchy. Jaws is a masterpiece, but like The Meg, some of those more like amazing, but very like, campy movies. So that's sort of what I'm aiming for. I hope I explained that okay.
You did. I'm captivated and terrified. Sharks are literally my number one fear on the planet. It has gotten more and more and more irrational when I've gotten older. I love the beach, but even like ankle deep water these days, I'm like, I'm gonna die. They're gonna come get me. So the
Yeah.
climate change part is terrifying. Do you okay, this is another loaded question. Do you have a general rough idea of when this might be available, hopefully for the world to read? Or where
I mean, publishing is such a funny thing. I'm outside of publishing right now. I'm, working on a third draft of this book, and I'm hoping to get an agent in the fall, or in the early, like in springtime. But it's once you get an agent, it can take so much longer than you would think. It's, usually you're going back and forth with your agent for a bit and going through edits. And then once you sell the book too, the editor at Simon and Schuster, whoever you get to publish the book, also does edits. So it can take a really long time. Like if they, sometimes things get fast tracked and they'll come out in like a year, but sometimes it'll take 3 years. Like I might be 30 by
wow.
the time I'm like really like talking about this book, which is good maybe because it seems like I need a little bit of time to work on the pitch.
No, your pitch was great. I was captivated. My producer messaged me too. She's like, "Oh my God, I'm obsessed with sharks." So you have
I
two readers right now.
Awesome.
And guys, we'll include where you can connect with Kells at the end of the show, and that way you can stay on her radar and keep an eye out for that. So
Yeah.
I literally, sharks are my worst fear. So let me rein it in, Lexie, as I start to sweat. We're gonna talk a little bit real quick before we get into kind of present day conversation about your career cliff notes. So walk us through just high level what came before today.
Hmm. Yeah, I started, I guess, like my really, like, when I kind of track back my career, it actually kind of starts at a meditation studio in New York City. I was working there as a volunteer so I could get free meditation. And the founder, whose name was Ellie Burrows, was kind enough to put my application for Well+Good to kind of just put in a good word for me. I had applied to be an intern at Well+Good. And actually, the first time, I should say, Well+Good is like a women's health and wellness website. And at the time, it's very big now, but at the time it was a little smaller. And actually, the first time I applied for the internship, I didn't get it. They gave it to someone else, and I inquired again when it was the next internship cycle, and I finally got it. So it took a little bit of effort to kind of get into the journalism field and some help from Ellie, but then once I was in, it really like I feel like I can really track how everything great that's happened in my career kind of started there. So I started it as an intern, but I was quickly hired after, well, not quickly, but like a year later, I was hired as an editorial assistant. And then I was promoted to being a news writer and then eventually to being a staff writer. And then from there, I kind of went off and decided to do my own thing. I tried to go in house at a few different like wellness companies that weren't editorial, but I found that that wasn't really my thing. And so I've just since then been freelancing, and uh, it's interesting because it's just like you just sort of see slowly how more and more people who from your past are helping you get jobs in your present. So a lot of people I worked with at Well+Good have now moved on to other places, and I work with them at companies, at various different companies. So now I write for Fortune and Shape and Outside and still Well+Good. And I've written one story for the New York Times, hoping to write more. I've also worked on the brand side, for Calm and Equinox and Beekeepers Naturals and a few other wellness companies. So I've kind of been around quite a bit.
All the places. Erica Sloan, who's I believe she's still the current lifestyle editor. I had her on this show. So longtime listeners should be very familiar with Well+Good, but huge fan. And actually I did want to real quick discuss two of your positions at Well+Good, because I think titles can get really convoluted or confusing from the outside looking in. What would you say is the difference between when you were a news writer and a staff writer?
as a news writer, I was responsible for writing 3 to 5 stories a day that were very timely. So wellness stories that were like, if a celebrity used a particular product or wore a particular pair of leggings that we wanted to cover, or on a more serious note, if like the CDC released new exercise guidelines, I was responsible for writing about that. So I would write like 3 to 5 stories a day. It was a hustle. It was like you got to be writing something every hour and a half, or you're not going to meet your quota. So once you're a staff writer, it's a little bit more relaxed, and you can take a little bit more time. That said, most staff writers still have to write like 3 stories a day, but they'll
Wow.
just be less timely. So it could be a story that's like more what we call evergreen, which is just a story that's relevant year round. So that's sort of that's like the major difference between the two. Is there anything else that is kind of unclear there?
No, I think that's super, super helpful. And to just kind of reflect back from the pitching standpoint, right? When you're pitching, and correct me if I'm wrong, at least for Well+Good, the
Mhm.
news was it has to be breaking news,
Yeah.
right? It's what's happening now, where when you became the staff writer, maybe you were receiving more evergreen. I always say evergreen is ever relevant. And
Mhm.
actually, I think Erica Sloan, ironically, is the one who taught me that term on that show. Evergreen is ever relevant. And so
Yeah.
now probably it opens up the opportunity for who you might be receiving pitches from or the pool of stories you can pull from.
Yeah, and most writers have like a huge backlog of stories that they've pitched and want to write. And so you're always kind of pulling from there. And as you get good pitches, you kind of incorporate it into your quote, like your long list of things that you would like to one day write when you have time.
So you're freelancing now. What are the different types of stories and beats you're covering these days?
So it's interesting because ever since, I mean, even working at Well+Good, I never could niche down. I was the only person on staff who wasn't a specific type of writer, meaning like I wasn't a fitness writer, I wasn't a lifestyle writer, I wasn't a relationship writer. I have always sort of just done general wellness, and that's what I'm doing now too. So I write about such a wide range of topics in the wellness world. Everything from commerce stories, which I write quite a few of them, especially for Shape, and to like things that are exercise related or things that are um, general wellness related, or like I just wrote a story on hypnosis. So
Oh, cool.
I'll really kind of go all over the place. But my favorite stories to write, and the ones that I think give me the most fulfillment, are like sports related stories and stories about women's health and kind of like health disparities. Like that's really what makes me feel good. But you have to balance it out because if you wrote about that stuff all the time, at least for me, I would I would be very unhappy.
Especially circa 2023
Yes.
with everything that's happening. Um,
Yeah.
so how do you go about securing or sifting through what actually gets published? Is it just all you're assigned? Or talk me through, if you have 500 ideas or you have 6,000 pitches, which ones, or what's the process like between what actually makes it online?
Oh yeah. Well, so since I'm freelance, I have a nice mix between people assigning me things, like people reaching out and saying, "Hey, can you write this particular story?" And people asking me for pitches, or me just cold pitching people. So I'll have a lot of times, if I have a good relationship with an editor, I'll just ask what's doing well, like what topics are really hitting on the site, and then I'll go out into the world and like ideate from there. And from then, it's just deadlines. It's like people saying, we want to have this story up in the next 2 weeks. We want to have this story up by next month. And that's just sort of how I queue it. It's just like anything that gets assigned to me, I'm usually working just like a month to a month and a half in advance. It's very like it's in a way like less structured than working in house, because you could just have or it's more structured than working in house, because it's just like I have these things due, and if I don't do them, I won't get paid and I won't be able to pay my rent. So
Yeah.
it's very
Yeah.
like straightforward.
Actually, and let's dig a little bit more into lead times, which you kind of just started bringing up. From the freelance perspective, are you always operating on pretty quick lead times? Is there any sort of average? Does it really just depend publication by publication? Give
Hmm.
us any insight there. So from the pitching side, right, we have some sort of idea of when we should be trying to hit a freelancer's inbox.
Yeah, it is a pretty big range. I think for things that I'm getting pitched, it's usually like if I get pitched something, it will be like a month or a little bit longer before it ends up, going live. The whole process, especially so when editors assign you something, usually like there's a bit of urgency there because it's like they are trying to get it out because they want to hit a traffic goal or they're really eager to cover this particular topic. But when I pitch something because someone sent me like a great pitch in my email and I'm like, sending it off and an editor's like approved, there's usually less urgency there. So it could take anywhere between like, yeah, like 3 weeks or like a month and a half, depending. But I think it's just as long as if the pitch is like super timely, then it's going to be a little bit quicker of a process, which is why like I always think that timely pitches are the best ones because there's a sense of urgency there that I think you kind of
Yeah.
need to give journalists a little bit of get up and then give editors a little bit of get up to get it
Yeah.
online.
Yeah. And in terms of when you were back at Well+Good in-house,
Mhm.
usually is it a month to a month and a half out in your
Hmm.
experience?
Yeah, it's pretty much always going to be that if a writer has like a long queue, or at least if I had a long queue of things I wanted to write. But yeah, if it's an urgent thing, it's like that could be up the next day. Like if I've had, for example, when let's use some of the recent women's wellness or women's health news.
Yeah.
If there's an abortion ban in a particular state, sometimes I'll get a pitch from like a doctor and they're like, I would love to be a source for this if you need someone to comment on it. And that their commentary might go out that day. So, it's definitely there's just such a huge range of how quickly things go out depending on how timely they are.
Did you know that I send out a community newsletter roundup every Tuesday, chocked full of resources, media kit downloads, journalist contact information, event invites, visibility opportunities? Basically, if you're not on the list, hit pause and sign up. It is super simple. All you got to do is go to theprbarinc.com/newsworthy. That link is in the show notes too. Okay, back to the show. That's super helpful to hear, actually, because I do think a lot of education is out there that consistently preaches long lead times, like 3 to 6 months out. And I think for some print, that can be the case, but there are a lot more short form opportunities when we hone in on the timeliness element of it. So I think
Yeah.
that's worth talking about to kind of share both perspectives for sure.
Mhm.
So this year and last year, especially in my opinion, I'm dating myself a little bit, having been in the industry now for 13 years, I've seen so much change and I'm seeing so many people going to freelancing. I'd love to just hear, as someone in the industry, anything that you've noticed or any perspectives you have or any inclinations about where journalism is. I know this is a huge question, but where journalism is headed even a year or two from now. Do you think, internal staff will continue to shrink and everyone's going to freelance, or anything that you think or you're preparing for?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I wrote down some of my thoughts because I was like, I need to be able to organize this when we're talking. You're right. Things are changing so fast between the layoffs and also artificial intelligence. Things are just like really, really changing. I mean, even since I started freelancing, it's just seeing people kind of have to molt out of this like full time job and into like every day. I'm pitching. I'm a freelancer now. I think it's just yeah, it's a lot to witness. And I think something I've just noticed in general is that um, people actually let me back up a little. I think the first thing I want to answer your question about like more people coming out or like coming to do freelance. I personally right now I'm a pretty big advocate for that. I think just really transparently, like going freelance for me was such a freeing thing, because, you know, in-house people, they don't often get paid very well, and it's definitely a grind. It's like, as I said, you have quotas, you have to reach them every single day, and writing, as automatic as it can feel when you write every day, it's not an easy thing, and it can be taxing. So I think the freedom to go freelance and kind of be able to take, you know, I'm going to actually take 6 hours and I'm going to be really thoughtful with this article, or I'm going to, you know, get paid commensurate with the amount of work that I put into this. It can feel really fulfilling in a way that sometimes like being in house can't. So I think that unfortunately editorial teams might continue to shrink, but I think that there is sort of maybe an upside to that. And certainly there are a lot of obstacles to being freelance. Like, you know, you have to pay for your own healthcare. And if you don't pitch enough, like you're not going to get the money that you need to like keep living and pay your rent and all of those important things. But I think that there is a certain freedom there. And you kind of have to take the good with the bad, to be a little bit trite.
I love
But
that perspective.
oh, good. It's really complicated though, because I can see it both ways. But I did write down like some more just like themes I've noticed in
Yeah,
journalism.
please.
I think you've already had a lot of people on the show talk about this, but I think a lot of brands are starting to just take their commerce strategies way more seriously. I've just seen it with the people that I've done. We used to do sort of a I don't want to say like sloppy, but just a little bit more like wild. We had like more of a wild way of writing commerce where it was like, you know, we're going to make a list of things, and maybe some we've tested, maybe some we haven't tested. Um, Now people are taking it really, really seriously. Like just working at the few companies I've worked at, there are really intense like systems for testing things, and what gets included in a roundup, what information gets included in the roundup, how can we engage the most readers. So there's so much thoughtfulness happening around commerce, which I think is really good, because for a while commerce was like a little bit of a Wild West situation. I think it's better for consumers that it's like getting a little bit more structured. And I think from the pitching side, that's important to know, because it's like you can pay attention to, you know, what is my product? What is its unique offering? How can I make the process of doing a commerce write-up the easiest for the writer? I think that can be really useful, like as a perspective. And then the second one, I think we've already mentioned this, but just like artificial intelligence is definitely, I'm seeing just becoming more and more of a presence in the journalism world. And I think that I don't know entirely what to think of it yet. I have a lot of existential anxiety about it, but I think it's already being started to, we're already starting to use it as a tool for some of the more soul sucking aspects of journalism, which are, you know, in my opinion, just like catering to Google. So what's really nice
Yeah.
about tools like ChatGPT or other tools is you can basically plug in like, make me an outline for a story about how to water my plants. And Google or ChatGPT will essentially show you what Google favors. Of course, you have to do your homework too and make sure that it's not off, but it will show
Yeah.
you, okay, you need a paragraph about this, you need a paragraph about this. So I think that AI is really becoming a good tool. And that's like a good tool for pitching too, because you know, if you're pitching a
Yeah.
story, these are the things I'm going to be asked. So that's been just like a really big, uh, like just a huge adjustment, because it just feels, you know, I grew up in the like era where it was like, if you take a single word from someone else or something else, that's plagiarism and it's terrible. And
Yeah.
certainly that's still true, but robots make it a little bit more confusing.
Yeah. I mean, I completely am following along with everything you've said. The commerce part too, to backtrack for a second. From a consumer, not that anyone cares what I think, but I'm it's my show, so I can add in what I want. I was just looking the other day for a stroller. My family and I were going
Mm.
abroad and I want to get a travel stroller. And I look at journalism and the articles that are coming up so differently now
Mhm.
because I do feel, well, I am actually really happy to hear there's a vetting process because part of me feels a little jaded and wondering, am I really getting the best suggestions or am I getting, who had the best affiliate link set up,
Mhm.
in this program? So it's nice to hear the positive in-house that there are a lot more structured vetting systems and that you actually think it's helping the consumers because maybe it sounds like I'm misinformed or jaded a little bit. So that's good for me to hear because I was getting so mad. I'm like, I don't want just the two strollers that is on every single article. But
Yeah.
I digress. So, what I do want to do, in the spirit of robots, is acknowledge you as a human and you as a writer, and talk through a little bit of rapid fire preferential pitching questions, which basically just means there's no right or wrong answer, just what you prefer and don't prefer in your inbox. So, are
Mhm.
you game?
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, so first question. Do you have a day of the week you prefer to be pitched?
I think any day except for Friday.
Okay. Time of day.
I think morning is better because the later it gets in the day, the more likely it's going to get buried by a bunch of nighttime emails and then it's
Mhm.
gone.
Okay. What about social media pitching? Are you open to receiving pitches via social media?
I would prefer it to just be in my inbox. I think it's good to kind of keep those things separate.
Yeah. Okay. I don't even know, do we call X Twitter or is it officially called X? I don't know. Jury's still out. Are you using X and or Twitter, or do you plan to continue using that platform?
No, I've never really used Twitter except for to retweet articles, and that was before Elon Musk stepped in, and I'm not very interested in being part of that platform now. I do have Threads that I need to start using more, and I just got on Blue Sky, but I haven't done anything with it yet. I'm
Okay.
not really sure what to do with the whole like Twitter situation.
Yeah. Threads. Okay, so Threads is on your radar. Mental note for
Yes.
myself to stop procrastinating on that platform.
I mean, I don't know how many people are using it. I know a lot of people joined initially, but then I feel like I stopped hearing people talk about it. So I
Same.
don't
It,
know.
it, it kind of reminded me of Clubhouse, but we'll see because I feel like Clubhouse was super big for a minute and then it went crickets, but we will see. Okay, so pleasantries. Do you prefer when someone takes a sentence or two in the beginning of a pitch to acknowledge you as a writer, mention a past article or something more than just straight to the point?
Hmm. Yeah, it's really nice, but I think at the end of the day, if it's a good pitch, it doesn't matter if there's a pleasantry or not. Um,
Okay.
but it is a nice thing to just acknowledge that we're both humans before you jump in.
Okay. Do you have a preference on who is pitching you? Meaning, is it okay if it's a business owner? Do you prefer publicists? Does it matter?
Hmm. No, both are totally fine.
Okay. Are you okay with follow-ups?
Yes, but only one. No more
One
than
follow-up.
one.
Okay, and cadence on that. Like, do you have a preference? Like, give me a week, or do you have any kind of metric on that?
Yeah, I think send the email and then just like put a week in your calendar and be like, I'm going to follow up in a week. I do this with pitching too. Like when I'm pitching an editor, I just think it's nice to give people a little bit of breathing room.
Fair enough. Okay. And then my last question, and this is mostly for your commerce stories. Do you
Hmm.
require affiliate links for products that you feature?
So this is a good question. I do not um I'm not in charge of picking the products for like I said, the commerce people I write for, they have an entire team that tests things. So I'm not responsible for picking the products. I just write them up. Um, but they always use affiliate links, so I'm assuming that's a requirement.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, but I in my experience, like not I'm not writing stories like this now, but I remember working at Well+Good. Um, that if there was an amazing product that didn't have an affiliate link that just excited us or made us feel like it was the next thing in the wellness conversation, it didn't matter if it had an affiliate link, it would get covered anyway. So it's just like a little bit of uniqueness, I think,
Yeah, you
sometimes.
really have to stand out. I have an offshoot question then. So if someone, can you do anything if someone pitches you product, or you just said you don't pick products, but as a freelancer, do you ever pitch products, or is that all up to the commerce teams?
Well, I do sometimes. So if someone pitches me something to try, I might do right like and I tried it. Like I'm trying the artificial intelligence fitness system called Tempo now. They like look at they can like sense the how good your pull up or so your like squatting form is by using artificial intelligence.
Oh,
So
whoa.
I'm testing that. For example, like they pitched me, we're writing a dedicated story on that, and I pitched the story. Like they pitched me and then I pitched the story to the place where it's going to come out. But
Okay. So there's still room for an exceptional
yeah.
product or pitch. Okay,
Yeah, but
cool.
I would say it has to be more interactive. Like it has to be something that um something you could write 1,000 words about, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That's okay. That's great. An experience. It's something that that's great insight. And then last question is, do you have any pitching pet peeves that come to mind?
Hmm. I think the biggest one is just pitching me things that I don't cover. Or I'm very sick of getting weight loss and dieting pitches. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to hear the words bikini body from anyone ever again. Summer is over, so luckily those pitches are going to be not coming on my inbox, but it does sort of blow my mind that I still get pitches like that in
Yeah.
2023.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but to just speak a little bit more on my first point of like, just when you're pitching someone, it's just so important that you actually know what they write about. And I know it's a little bit of extra homework, but it's very frustrating. Like if you are a wellness writer and you're getting pitches about like politics that you would never cover, obviously there are some politics that overlap with wellness, but I'm like, I don't write about that.
Yeah, for sure. And
Yeah.
also read the room a little bit too. I think you can do homework and tend to like pick up if you're the type of writer who would be covering bikini body
Right.
season, right? Read the room a little bit. Um, okay, amazing. Thank you. That was super helpful. I keep saying my last question, but my last question outside of actually I have two more. I lied. Here we go. Two more questions outside of rapid fire. First, we talked pitchin'. What can we find you sipping? So, my signature question, what is your favorite beverage, alcoholic or non-alcoholic, of course?
I feel like it's just coffee, like coffee with oat milk. I love, especially just the first one of the day. None of the other ones ever taste as good as the first one. I don't know what that is about. Um, I also like the little Olipop drinks. Have you had those? Like
I
the
haven't.
they're like gut health drinks. I don't know how actually good they are for your gut. I cannot verify, but they're like little sodas.
Okay.
And they have a root beer flavor that's very nostalgic because I used to always drink root beer as a kid.
Okay.
So I love
Do you
that one too.
do you shop at Trader Joe's?
I do, but I'll go to Whole Foods just to get oat milk and Olipop.
Well, okay, so if you haven't tried it already, my signature morning drink that I have right next to me, the Trader Joe's has a oat milk like brown sugar creamer. It's oat milk, but like look, it doesn't sound that healthy, but it's not terrible. It's really, really good. It's oat milk with like a pinch of brown sugar. And it's so
Oh, yum.
bomb.
Okay, I'll
Highly, highly suggest, like on a treat yourself day, even though I treat myself every morning with it.
That's really good because I it annoys me that I have to go to another store to get
Yeah, they have it. It's
creamer.
like one of the most popular things. It was a Trader Joe's favorite thing. I discovered it um during I think when I was breastfeeding and I couldn't have dairy or pregnant. I can't remember. That whole phase of my life is a blur now. Um anyways, highly suggest it's next to the oat milk. It's small. It's like a brown sugar oat milk
Okay.
creamer.
Okay, I'm gonna try it.
Really, really bomb. Okay. Last question is where can people connect with you? Where can they learn more? Where should we send them?
Okay. I am just at Kells McPhillips on I don't know if I should I spell it? Do people I guess
We'll put it in the show
okay,
notes.
cool. I'm just at Kells McPhillips on everything, Instagram, Threads, TikTok. I have been on TikTok a little bit, but not really that much. And you can also just email me, and this one's also really easy, kellsmcphillips@gmail.com. I have kept things really basic, so hopefully it's not hard to find
Thank
me.
you for that. And thank you for being someone who's not so safeguarding your email that it takes a publicist like 5 hours to find it, which I respect, but at the same time, I'm like, just publish your email.
Yes. Yeah.
So I appreciate that. No, this was such a wonderful conversation. I know everyone's going to be blown away by what you shared. I feel like I got a healthy new perspective too on commerce, which I appreciate. And I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Lexie.
Hey guys, if you are enjoying the Pitchin and Sippin podcast, please do me a huge favor and leave a review wherever you are listening. If you want to connect with me to learn more about the PR Bar Inc., you can do so on Instagram at @thePRBar_Inc., or you can check out my website at theprbarinc.com. Cheers!